GranTurismo. So this GranTurismo is all about being a good Grand Tourer, which means it's supposed to be comfortable, it's supposed to be powerful, it's supposed to take you over long journeys comfortably, and you know, a Grand Tourer basically. This is the 2009 Maserati GranTurismo, and over the years the design of the exterior and interior hasn't really changed much. So even if you get like a 2018 or 2019 Maserati GranTurismo, it looks pretty much the same as this. Now this car has a 4.2 litre V8 Ferrari engine with a ZF 6-speed automatic transmission. So that gives you about 400 horsepower, 460 Newton meters of torque, and it does 0 to 100 in about 5.2 seconds. To put that into perspective, a Kia Stinger is slightly faster than this car. But that's okay because the engine sounds like this. The engine sound is so good, I'm just gonna put in random footage of the engine note throughout this review. So this is kind of like the base model Maserati GranTurismo, because other than this you do get the Maserati GranTurismo S, Maserati GranTurismo MC, Maserati GranTurismo MC Sports line, Maserati GranTurismo MC Stradale, however you pronounce it. Now those are the more powerful variants of the Maserati GranTurismo. So you do get a bigger engine, the same engine but a different variant, a more powerful one. If I were to get a Maserati GranTurismo, the biggest factor would be the sound. Listen to that V8. Speaking of getting one, this car can now be had for about $140,000 to $150,000 for a fresh 10-year COE, which means if you can afford the 30% down payment of about $50,000, your monthly can be as low as $1,400 to $1,600 per month. And at a $50,000 per year loss in value, you get the same amount of depreciation as like a Toyota Altis. So let's talk a bit about the exterior design. This car doesn't look like it, but it was designed to be a GT like I mentioned. It looks more like a sports car rather than a full-on GT car. You know, people have a lot of praise for this car because, yeah, I agree, it is a sexy looking car. And also because it was designed by Pininfarina, which is like a world-renowned design house. This car also has won a few design awards, so that's like a testament to the design of this car. This Maserati is like a bad boy's car. It has that kind of like evil look. I don't know if you get what I mean, but to me the car has this like evil, very sinister kind of look. It's like if it were in a movie and the villain had to have a car, it would be this one. I think it's because the headlights of this car reminds me of like a snake's eyes. So yeah, this is a sexy looking car, and I noticed that the Trident logo is placed all over the car. You get it on the grille, you get it on the front side, you get it on the rear side, you get it even in your gauge cluster here. It's everywhere. Now this car is like 10 years old, but it still looks fresh. To people who don't know what this car is, if you ask them like how old do you think this car is, probably they're gonna say like maybe 3-4 years old. However, I can't say the same for the interior, and I'll get to that in a bit. This is a seductive, sleek, good looking car from the front. I'm not a very big fan of the taillights, to be honest. The bonnet is very long as well, and if you look at the engine placement, it's pushed right all the way to the back, as far back as possible. So end up the engine only takes up like half the bonnet space. But that also means that you get a very equal weight distribution. It's like 49-51 or something like that. The rear of the car is also quite flat, so it has a very wide stance from the back, which I really like. Now interior wise, if you take a step back and you look at the interior of this car as a whole, it looks like the interior of a regular car. I don't find it super luxurious or anything. Yes, there is a lot of leather everywhere and the materials feel of a certain quality, but you can see that it's starting to age, and it doesn't age very gracefully. You can see that the buttons are starting to peel off, it's starting to get discolored, scratched off, and just the design of the interior as a whole is just kind of outdated, to be honest. For example, the aircon controls here look like the aircon controls in a regular car, but that's okay because the engine sounds like this. Storage space isn't too bad. In your door bins here you can see it's quite long, and even though it's quite shallow, you can keep a few things here. Center storage, it's not the deepest, but you still get a good amount of space for you to keep your items here. Glove box, as you can see, is actually quite small. Space in the back, you see I don't get any knee room with this seat in my original driver's position, but I do get some headroom. So how does this car feel to drive? Number one, I have to point out that the pedal and the brakes are really close to each other. So it takes some getting used to, because you can accidentally step on the wrong pedal. But not for me, because I'm a professional. No lah, just kidding. The engine also feels very, very smooth. Like when I was driving this car out of the car park, I was driving really, really slowly, like even at 20 kilometers an hour. I can feel how smooth the car really is. And the steering wheel is actually quite light. For a car that looks this sporty, the steering wheel is actually quite light, and so that makes it very easy for you to navigate around smaller spaces or when you are driving very slowly. This car also doesn't feel as fast as it should. I mean, this car does 0 to 100 in 5.2 seconds, but it doesn't feel like 5.2. It feels a bit slower than that. I don't know why. You know how some cars just, even though on paper they are not very fast, but they feel faster than they actually are? Yeah, with this car it's kind of like the opposite. It's fast, I know it's fast, but it doesn't feel as fast. But that's okay because the engine sounds like this. Let me put this car into sports mode. Traffic today is quite bad. There's nothing quite like driving slowly in a 400 horsepower car. Why Singapore got so many traffic lights? Why? There's a bit of free play in the steering. So the steering is not as sharp as in some other cars. Like you see, I'm turning it a bit here, but the car is like still going straight. It's not responding precisely to my steering inputs. Another thing is that the bonnet of this car is quite long, so it's a bit hard for me to place the front of the car, because from the inside of the car it feels as if the bonnet is quite short. Obviously I can't see the bonnet, but like from my driver's perspective, I don't get the sense that the bonnet is long. So it really lives up to that GranTurismo name because it's comfortable, it's firm. The ride is firm, but it's still very comfortable. And it's just so smooth. This V8 is just, it's really smooth. Can you daily drive this car? Absolutely yes. It's very civilized. It almost feels like a normal car, except the roar of the engine. It feels like a normal car. I think people who buy this car, you can't really have an elderly person or a person with heart problems as one of your passengers, because you just tap the throttle a bit and you might scare them. The car is also pretty quiet, except for that, this car wasn't what I expected it to be. From the looks of it, it looks kind of like raw, unfiltered, difficult to live with, like a typical sports car, but it's not. It's really easy to live with. Visibility is very good, it's comfortable, it's powerful enough. It's a car that you can really daily drive and live with every single day. And the bonus is that you get to enjoy that glorious V8 sound every single time you drive this car. I think in some ways this is a car that you can consider over like a Ferrari, because it's cheaper, it's powerful enough for most people, it's a bit less flashy than a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, those typical full-on Italian sports cars, or supercars I should say. It's for those who want an Italian supercar without looking like the rest of the Italian supercars. Me personally, I think this is more of a sports car rather than a supercar. So overall, what do I think of the car? I like the way this car looks, especially in this white paintwork. It looks beautiful. It's like a white stallion. It's really beautiful in white. And I love the way the car looks from the front. I'm not a big fan of the taillights. I just think they are not as nice looking as the front of the car. Number two, I love the sound. The sound is just, it reminds you that you're driving a Maserati, you know, because this car feels like a normal car. And you know, sometimes when you're just driving, your mind wanders off and you forget that you're in a Maserati, a V8 powered Maserati. And then you just step on the pedals a bit and the engine like roars at you and you, oh, I'm in a Maserati. I also like how livable this car is. You can daily drive this car, no problems. What I dislike about it is the interior is a bit uninspiring for me. It looks like the interior of an ordinary car, and the interior doesn't age very well. You can see that a lot of the panels are starting to, you know, peel off, and it's starting to show its age. And you don't get that even in some cheaper cars, like for example Audis. Their interior really hold up very well. You can't see it from this car because the owner upgraded the infotainment system, but the stock infotainment system in the Maserati, like I mentioned earlier, is actually not very good. It's pretty outdated, to be honest, but that's okay because the engine sounds like this. So yeah, that's about it guys. Thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Do like, share, comment and subscribe if you haven't. Let me know what you think and I'll see you guys in the next review.